Hello and welcome to the second edition of the Acca Backer here on the Racing Post, the show that brings our expert tipsters together to try and put together a lovely winning accumulator for the weekend. The blinds are up this week. We've got a lovely view behind us and we've got the expert view of my Racing Post colleagues Mark Langdon and Dan Childs. Gents, how are we feeling first of all?
A bit more confident now. I feel like the international break, it's like a line in the sand really. Yeah, that first couple of weeks is very frantic. They just had a little breather, ready to go.
And Dan, it was a mixed first week, wasn't it? A couple of winners, a couple of losers. Back with a bang this week though, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm glad to get the national break out of the way, if I'm honest, and get back to the real proper stuff.
Although you had a couple of winners midweek, didn't you, in the international break?
Yeah, did all right with a treble and that, but I'm still looking forward to the domestic stuff, yeah.
Good. And Mark, were you keenly watching the first episode to see how your colleagues got on tipping-wise?
Well, I was on a sunbed. I was on a sunbed in Spain, but still tuned in. You got to get your. You need to take in a breather every now and then.
That's why you're feeling energised. Let's go with your first tip of the week then.
Yeah, Crewe. They were a team that, if you look back to, they've started the season brilliantly. 5 wins in 7 matches. They take on Cambridge at home. And you can say that teams, maybe not all of them that start well are going to finish the season well, but this is not a fluke from Crewe. Last season they were the best team in the division over the second half of the campaign. It's just been a continuation of that. Cambridge, the problem is scoring goals. It was their problem last season. I don't really think they've done enough in the sort of transfer window to improve that. If anything, they've got a little bit worse with Brown, of course, heading off to Colchester. They brought in Jack Rolls from Tottenham, but he was on international duty himself last week with Cyprus. Still sort of getting used to men's football, I think it's fair to say. So I think if Crewe can score 1 goal should be enough, and they've got plenty of firepower in them. So fully expect them to win. And I know, Jack, that you sent over a link to me about Aaron Wan-Bissaka he was on trial at Cambridge, and they managed to turn him into maybe it was them that turned him into a winger, into a defender. And I think that under Sean Derry and Colin Calderwood, there has been this sort of emphasis: defence first, safety first. And it might enable them to get a 0-0, but I think that's the best they can hope for at Gressy Road. And I think that Crewe, with their silky skilled players in the attacking third, can get the job done.
Yeah, Dan, I think there was a few people fancying Cambridge against Forest Green last weekend, but it wasn't to be, and it's been a mixed start for them, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think I always look at the stats of a lot of the games. I think they were a little bit unlucky in that game. They had a lot of shots, but maybe that goes along with a theory that they've not got the clinical touch up front, so they're not making the most of those chances. And I agree, Crewe were a side sort of first half of last season. They weren't doing so well on the stats, and they were maybe performing a bit better results-wise than they should have done. But as the season went on, their performance got better and better, and it's carried on this season. I know the manager, David Artell, was expecting some interest in quite a few of their young players that they often develop there, and hasn't happened. So they've kept hold of a really good squad, and I think they're going to do well this season.
So Crewe is the first tip in the Acca Backer. If you've got any tips that you like the look of this weekend, then please do feel free to let us know in the comment section of this video. Dan, let's go up a couple of divisions for your first tip of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to go for QPR at home to Luton. I just think QPR, Mark Warburton's gone in there. He knows the division from, he's had a previous spell just across West London at Brentford. Did a really good job there, took him to the playoffs during his time there. I think at Queen's Park Rangers, they've had a few years since they come out of the Premier League of adjusting to a new financial environment. They've really been cutting the wage bill and done well really to stay in the division for the last few years. They're now starting to build again with some combination, a few good young players. Abiri Eze, who's come through there, he's got a great technique, good eye for a pass, scores a few goals as well. Elias Cherry was on loan as well at Stevenage last season. He's been fast-tracked into the team, got a lot of good technical ability as well. So those two, the creativity. And then he waited all summer to try and beef up the forward line, eventually settled on Jordan Hugill on loan from West Ham. He's got 5 goals. That makes him the joint top scorer in the division alongside the likes of Alexander Mitrovic. So that's a fantastic signing for them. Holds the ball up well, is getting his goals, gives them a focal point. And Luton, I think they've had 2 wins recently against struggling sides. They won 3-1 at Barnsley, who can't really defend. Beat Huddersfield 2-1 at home. Huddersfield haven't had a win yet. And even that game, Huddersfield took the lead and were looking quite comfortable until Luton got the penalty to equalise. So I'm not completely convinced by Luton yet. I think this is a much tougher game at QPR. I think QPR will win it.
Brilliant. And Mark, Dan mentioned there are a few fantastic names in that QPR side, but Luton have been the team I've looked at the last few seasons. Nathan Jones, then Mick Harford, now Graham Jones. They've been a really nice team over the past couple of seasons, haven't they? And I don't think maybe can be written off just yet.
No, I mean, I think a lot of what they did last season was down to the fullbacks, who have both managed to get Premier League transfers, which goes to show how good the likes of Justin and Stacey were in Nathan Jones' diamond. I bumped into, even Dan was mentioning Mick Harford, I bumped into Mick Harford last week. I was at Wickham against Lincoln. I just had to move him out his way so I could get to my seat. He's an imposing character still. I know he was, and he's done a brilliant job in terms of what they've done behind the scenes at Luton. But it's a big step up. This is a team that's took promotion, League Two, League One. Now they're in the Championship, and sometimes you never turn it down. But I think it is, from where they were at League Two level to now playing Championship, it's a big step.
QPR go into the accumulator. Mark, your second tip. We're going out of England.
Yeah, more exotic, from Gresty Road for my first one to San Siro for the second. Gresty Road's probably in a better state. I mean, San Siro in desperate need of redevelopment or knocking down. But Inter, under Antonio Conte now, I'm expecting big things from them. He's a fantastic manager, and we saw the immediate impact he had not only at Juventus but Chelsea, where he took them from a rabble, really, from Jose Mourinho's sort of second spell in charge, and won them the Premier League in his first year. He's gone into Inter and got an immediate reaction from them. They thrashed Lecce in their opening game, a more difficult encounter against Cagliari in the second game. Of course, it was all the racism that's kind of dominated the headlines in terms of what Romelu Lukaku had to face in that game. But it was a big victory for Inter. It was one that they deserved. Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez got a hat-trick for Argentina in midweek against Mexico. That's a quality front two. Sensi and Barella have been signed to really enforce the quality in midfield. Godin at the back. They really fancy their chances of giving Juve a better run for the money than they've had in recent years. And if they are to do that, they've got to be beating the likes of Udinese at home. Udinese, the Pozzos have put all their money and time and effort really into Watford in recent years, and Udinese have kind of been left to just sort of battle it out in the bottom half of Serie A.
Dan, I'm always slightly wary about putting Italian games in my accumulator. Are you convinced by Mark's tip?
I am, yeah, and I can probably give you, a bit more of an insight into the Udinese side of things because of following Watford. I know a couple of the players that they've signed this summer, and Mark alluded to the fact that they're getting the lesser players of the Pozzo group now, and Watford had Stefano Acca, who he had a good reputation a few years ago, and he's won some caps for Italy, but he's played very, very little in recent seasons. He's signed from Watford permanently. Ken Seamer, a winger who Watford signed from a Swedish club, Östersund, is another one of their signings, and trust me, whenever I've seen him play for Watford, there don't look a lot of ability there, and you look at the standard of players they're signing compared to what Inter have got, and I'd have to go along with Mark with that tip.
Well, that's good. Next tip for you then. We're changing the format up slightly this week. We're going for a four-fold accumulator and then a couple of wild cards at the end. So let's make the 4 out of 4 for the accumulator this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go for there's quite a short price, Swindon at home to Macclesfield, but I think they deserve to be, possibly shorter. I think Swindon, the fourth in League Two at the moment. I think they'll win League Two. It's a big statement to make this early. But I think Richie Wellens, the manager there, has done a really good job. Last season, the attack was letting them down, really. They had attacking midfielder Michael Doughty. I think he used to be at the Queen's Park Rangers earlier in his career. He was a top scorer, 13 goals, 8 of them were penalties. There wasn't really anything coming from the forwards. He's really addressed that. He's got Jerry Yates on loan from Rotherham, who's got 4 goals in 4 appearances. He signed Owen Doyle, as coming from Bradford. He's got 5 goals in 5 games now. Owen Doyle's actually got a good record at a higher level than that, and it was under Wellens. He played 30 games he played for Oldham while he was on loan there, scored 15 goals in League One. So if he can do it in League One, it's not a surprise really that he's doing it in League Two. On the Macclesfield side of things, they've Sol Campbell's obviously left there, but he did, before he went, he did assemble a pretty good squad, a good squad of young players. Daryl McMahon's come in. They've had a good start at the moment, but there's a little bit of vulnerability shown recently. They've given up leads in a draw at Stevenage 2-2, gave up a lead at home to Crawley as well, 1-1 in their last game. I just think they're starting to tail off a little bit. I don't expect them to stay in the top half for the rest of the season. So Swindon for me here is a bet.
Swindon seems good to me. Mark, you convinced?
I really like Swindon. There is a little in there. It's just that I had one of, you get these network of people that you talk to that go to various games, try and build up sort of portfolios of all the teams, as many as you can. And he had a scout at the Macclesfield Salford game last week, and he said he thought Macclesfield were quite good. But I definitely echo what Dan was saying about Swindon. So far, in what looks to be a wide open league, they look to be the best team, I think.
Brilliant. So on to our wild cards now, gents. These are the bets with slightly longer odds. Mark, we'll start with you. What are we going for?
We're going for more misery for Stoke and Nathan Jones. I mean, you know, the bottom.
You like Nathan Jones, though,
I
right?
really like
Yeah.
Nathan Jones, and I would, when he went to Stoke, I said what a great appointment it was, and I still think it was the right decision to appoint him. But it's a much bigger job, I think. Than
Was
what
it the right
maybe
decision from him to move clubs?
Do you know what I think it was? I think that when you saw the potential of Stoke, you know, they were among the front runners, you know, last season for the Championship. This season, they were still aiming for top six. I mean, you know, how far can you take Luton? Whereas, you know, you think there's a much quicker jump to get Stoke to the Premier League. And unfortunately, it's just not worked out. You know, they've 3 wins, I think, since Boxing Day. Yeah, and that started, of course, under Gary Rowett, continued under Nathan Jones. 1 point this season. They've been unlucky in a few matches, but you know, confidence is now so low. The negativity around the stadium as well, I think, negates home advantage, and yeah, they're conceding a lot of goals. So I'm going for Bristol City to win and over 2.5 goals to really bump up that price to around about 5-1. Bristol City, they've only lost 1 game so far this season in the Championship. That was against Leeds. I think most teams are going to lose against Leeds. I'm not overly sold on them, but I think that it's the right place, right time. They're scoring plenty of goals, and it's more a negative just about the whole feeling at Stoke at the moment. I don't like a home favourite when there's a lack of confidence, because I think that we've all been inside a football stadium when there's your team are playing and you know they're not playing well. It takes about 10 minutes or one bad pass and the crowd, you know, get on the backs, and some grounds are worse than others. And I think the Stoke fans have been so loyal towards their team, but they've had enough now. And if Bristol City can just turn the crowd on Jones and Stoke, it could be a really good afternoon for them.
Yeah, Dan, I thought Stoke might, I mean, maybe not in with the playoffs, but I thought they'd be doing better than they have been. Do you think this downward spiral is going to continue, or do you think they're going to bounce back?
I mean, there's only one way to go from, really, isn't there, at some stage?
There's been some big teams gone through the leagues,
but no, I think their squad is. Eventually they will get it right. Whether that's going to be under Jones or another manager, I'm not sure. And I wouldn't put that down to Jones. I agree with Mark, he's a good manager, but sometimes a team just gets so low on confidence into such a negative spiral that it's very hard to break that and get out of it. And often it's almost by default that they change the manager. It lifts a bit of the pressure on the players and they get a result. But I think there's the other side of the angle for the high goals. I think he's changed their style. This has been happening for a while. Under Rowett, there was a cautious sort of counter-attacking style, defensive. Scored very few goals last season. They have started scoring more goals this season under Nathan Jones, but they've been letting a lot more goals in as well. So I think he's trying to play expansive, getting the fullbacks high, maybe leaving a few gaps. Also been lots of individual errors. Butland, I think he's been dropped for the last couple of games, but he made a couple of howlers in their loss at Preston. So I think there's a good chance of over goals. And Bristol City, good away side, won I think an under pressure sort of derby in a similar sort of situation as well this season. So it could happen again.
Well, Stoke fans, if you're still watching after that, then let us know if you agree with the boys in the comments section below. And finally, Dan, final pick of the day, and it's your wild card. Yeah, I'm going to go down to League Two. I mean, Morecambe used to struggle in League Two, so they're on 6 points at the moment, just keeping their heads above water, which is kind of what they aim to do each season. I mean, Jim Bentley there's working with one of the lowest budgets in the league. They're away to Scunthorpe, who are rock bottom. Got 1 point from 7 games, which is a disaster really, because they would have been looking to bounce back from relegation, would have been hoping to be in and around probably playoffs minimum this season. So the chairman there is keeping faith at the moment with Paul Hurst, who's. I mean, last job he had, I think it was a tough job actually at Ipswich, the circumstances he went into, but he didn't last very long there. He's had another bad start here. I think just the pressure, again, a little bit like Mark was saying about Stoke, the fact that playing at home when you're on a bad run of results, it's not necessarily the right place to turn it around. Morecambe, I mean, they have got a threat up front. Alessandra's got 5 goals this season, started the season very well.
they're not always an easy team to play against. It's got a 2-2 draw at Mansfield this season, one at Macclesfield 1-0, who Mark's mentioned, are a decent, better side this season. So I think they're overpriced to go to a struggling Scunthorpe and win.
Brilliant. Agree, Mark?
Oh, I certainly wouldn't back Scunthorpe. I mean, it's that negative vibe. When you're on a run, you can turn that home form into absolute, wherever you are, into a fortress, and you want to be backing the teams. I think around 10 to 11, 5 to 6 when they're on a decent run. But when you're not on a good run, and Paul Hurst particularly has come in from such a low at Ipswich, I felt like he'd done the right thing in sort of moving to a club where you expect them to be. I mean, Dan was saying top 7. I mean, I think most people would have said even higher than that, really, given the budget, and they shouldn't have gone down last season. For him to start badly again just makes it such a negative place to be.
There we go then. That is the Acca Backer Week 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Massive thanks to Dan and Mark. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.